couple of seasons ago, I was a few games off of Masters, but since then I've fallen off completely and I now find myself in the depths of Iron. This season, I've made it my mission to restore my former glory in the series of regular episodes creatively known as... Since we were starting off in Iron 1 with 57 LP, I figured that on my first day of recording it was good a time as any to start messing around with some meme decks. So I picked up this LoR Caitlyn deck from Absolution's match history on runeterra.ar, and you should also totally check out Absolution's content, by the way, he is a riot. The idea is pretty simple. LoR's package allows for plenty of burst speed, trap, and portal planting. This eventually culminates in puff cap lethals and rolling some pretty insane units off of portals with LoR, kind of like Teemo decks but with better board presence. I called it teleporting FLASHBOMBs for 3 days in reference to this meme.
I have done nothing but teleport bread for 3 days.
In our very first match, we went up against Yasuo and Leona, a deck that I wasn't sure how I'd face up to simply because of the control options available in Targon and Ionia. I was fairly convinced that I was going to lose even. Probably gonna lose to this, honestly. But then, I got my first taste of the high rolls. My portals summoned Egghead Researcher, which then created the Camovoran Dragon in my hand that then allowed me to stymie my opponent's attacks from that point onward. That's pretty good. My ultimate fear of losing to this control matchup, though, was completely misplaced, as one final insider knowledge, which drew 8 puff caps on one card, was enough to close out game 1. But what really surprised me was that this singular win gave me a whopping 50 LP, launching me from 57 LP in Iron 1 to 7 LP in Bronze 4. This challenge is easy. Iron? More like... Bayern. What we also need to work on is understanding our mid-range matchups better, because in the next match, I very quickly found out that Kayn is a problem for our deck, especially when they run Zoe as well. I had seen this deck before in a Majin Bay video, and from what I remembered in the moment, the top end of the deck was mostly populated by Kayn, so I tried this big brain maneuver called playing Aloof Travelers on turn 5 and successfully got rid of one in the hand. Too bad for me, they already had another one in hand without the help of the Cultist buff, and then drew their third with the Cultist buff the following round. Later in the game, I discarded another Kayn while the last one was on board, but at this point I hadn't found a single copy of Nora or Caitlyn, and my ability to punch up against this deck was suffering for it. Even though my block was adequate, there was nothing I could do against Furious Wielder and Pale Cascade on Ross to close out the match. Close one, but no cigar. My next 3 matches were against Kayn Viego, Trundle Ornn with Timelines, and Ornn Gwen. The Kayn deck always has Kayn in hand, but they nearly gifted me lethal if Vengeance wasn't there to stop it. Twice. Then came me forgetting how Tarash works, followed up by once again barely losing the match, and this time to Atrocity. Trundle Ornn was quick to show off how powerful the Chef Weapon Master is in Timelines, and I generally had a hard time going even with this deck. It was around this point where I started to think that maybe Nora is a bad champion? Well, if anything, she's at least fun to run because I could set off fireworks to celebrate my own death in game number 4. Game 5 saw Gwen getting the Scout Weapon. Riot, you lied to me. There's not much to say about this one outside of this sheer copium final round.
Yeah, just, you know, a high roll?
Oh, maybe I just freaking high roll this. Who knows?
1. Alright, where's the other 13? 2. Alright, close match, close match.
I'm having fun, but my win rate so far is not. I wonder if there are any low-ranked bronze players who would like to go into competitive with a deck idea so bad that the match consists entirely of the two of us staring at each other down in a war of attrition. Okay, this deck was a weird one. No champions, Freljord Piltover's on list. I initially thought this was some offshoot of Timelines, but after my opponent played a total of 5 copies of Starlit Seer over the course of the match, I had my doubts. I went back to check my match history and found the list here. Apparently this list was entirely based around the idea of Omega buffing Overwhelm units with Starlit Seer, and then swinging for big lethals with a wide board. Solid idea, but I never saw any of these big units come in, and after I Galaxy Brained my opponent into wiping their own board with an It That Stares, I went for the nuclear option. An 8/9 Karina Mastermind with Overwhelm for the lethal. We did it! We're getting the Masters, baby! Yeah! Guys, I don't know what to tell you, but after this result, I think this deck could be meta. After only 6 games, I decided to call it a day on the Kate Nora deck, ending its run on 2 wins and 4 losses. Not a great start. But I wasn't done with Nora. I stumbled upon a list by Max Got the Tracks, which featured Elise and Nora. This combo was even more genius. Why focus on the random card effects that don't work with each other when the far more important effect was getting Nora's level up? See, Nora's level up is worded in a weird way, but it basically reads as you have summoned 6+ allies this game. This works especially well with Elise and Strike Up the Band, which, given the mana and the opportunity, can complete half of Nora's level up by turn 3. Naturally, I took this list onto the ranked ladder, and in our first match of teleporting spiders, we ran into another Nora list where we failed to run into a single one with our previous deck list. This one was Nora Callista, and they were trying to do the same thing that we were, but the only problem and their ultimate downfall was that they were playing Callista. However, one of the benefits of playing Callista was that they could justify playing other cards like Haunted Relic, which summoned 3 units for Nora and instantly leveled their Callista. By far the most fun thing about this encounter though was that we got to share fireworks with each other before I high-rolled a Mana Soul student and killed my opponent with a Glimpse Beyond. RNG at its finest. Game 2, however, set a harrowing precedent, as already in Bronze I was facing one of the top decks from last season, Viego Evelyn, which I have referred to in the past as the Grapefruit Method. Don't look that up. Remember a little earlier how I said that we were struggling to punch above our weight against these larger units? $5 says you know how this game went. At this point, I realized that I was also part of the problem though. Why am I complaining about big units when I'm in Shadow Isles and Bandle City, the 2 regions best equipped to deal with big units? So I went into the deck builder and removed 2x Fading Memories and 1x Strike Up the Band for 2x Vengeance and 1x Minimorph. Why Minimorph, and why didn't I keep 2 cards that also accelerated my Nora level up? Because at this point, I was tilted. I wasn't thinking straight, and I wanted the next person playing last season's news to be highly irritated for at least 3 seconds. These tech cards ended up working out pretty well in our next match as we ran into one of the decks that I feared, Kindred Nasus. I also high-rolled the f*** out of them. Let me tell you how it went down. We traded hate spikes at the start of the game, which told me it was safe for me to play my Nora since they'd have to have a 3rd one in hand, and that sounded like a pretty bricked hand to me if that was the case. With Yordle Captain on the board, I dropped Solter, who rolled Challenger, which I gave to my Nora and made their Kindred disappear. They only had 1 mana, so I knew they couldn't play Vile Feast, and Hate Spike was a distant memory at this point. I also played around having enough mana to play Vengeance the next turn so that if they had another champion, oh hey Nasus, nice of you to drop in, behold my tech card, which in your case we'll just call it a 5/7. I sneezed dust all over my units, and my opponent committed the ancient honorable act of seppuku to give me the win. This win didn't prepare me for what I faced next. Even though I had Minimorph for their Kaisa when she dropped because I was worried about activating Heedless Resurrection, I very, very stupidly threw a Vengeance at a Void Abomination that I didn't think had Spell Shield, even though the Belvethi Elder was sitting right there, because I am blind and also very tilted. Tech cards. Tech cards are working out, baby. Oh yeah, I thought it didn't have Spell Shield. Ah, what am I doing? I'm an idiot. I forgot about this. Amidst that massive blunder, I had to wonder why my opponent was playing Kaisa in Bronze rank though. There's a whole new expansion full of flavor, and they defaulted to picking vanilla. Game 5 was further downhill, and it was another Nora matchup, except I played it like I wasn't playing into a Nora matchup. I did my mulligan poorly, and let's just skip to the result because I was tilted when I was playing this match. And there you go, it's another defeat. Still blind to how badly my tilt was affecting my ability to play the game, I jumped into a 6 match to try and make my overall win rate a solid 50% for the evening, and I'm not scripting this sequence of matches. In our final match, we were against Yasuo and Leona. This deck, which I had so handily pushed aside with the first Nora deck iteration, should be a walk in the park, right? Look, I'm not saying that luck was not on my side, but my opening hand had 3 Yordle captains, and I knew how much more important it was to find my portal making pals before one of these, though I probably should have kept 1. I did a full mulligan of this hand and drew 3 spells and Sulter. Not the most concerning thing. In the 9 turns that transpired afterwards, I drew 2 Junk Constructs, 1 Elise, and the rest were spells. Not finding Teamaker, Yordle Captain, Nora, or any of my actually useful lower end spells like Pokestick or Vile Feast was incredibly tilting to me. I managed to snipe a Yasuo, but then in return my opponent notified 2 of my Glimpse Beyonds in a row, at which point I handed over the LP. Don't play in tilt, kids. Once again, after I finished that little recording segment, I put the Nora Elise deck back on the shelf, blew off some steam before I attempted to climb the ladder again. As it stands though, the results were the exact same as the last deck. 2 wins, 4 losses. At the end of this though, I am determined to become a Masters player, to restore my own pride and learn a thing or two about this fan-dangled card game that I haven't been getting right. And that's all for this episode. It's the only time where I'll have this sort of prologue to explain some things more outright. I would have made this video longer, but I ran out of time for recording gameplay, so this video is on the relatively shorter side than I'd like it to be. Please let me know what you think, and if there are some tips you have for me or decks you'd like to feature in the series, just drop it in the comments down below. I also don't always have time to record, and I'm often at college, so I'll play a fair amount on my phone while I'm over there, but I'll throw in a rank update and a few casual notes about my escapades at the start of the next episode. And that's it. Thanks for watching. Peace.